is just disregarding the law. No one is following anything. And the moment our law is bended and broken, that means the foundation of our democracy is already shaken. And we will fight and keep fighting, and we cannot go anywhere. And I was like, I told her, no, these are people who have invested their resources to gain political power, and they will not give it up easily. They've invested in this, and they have gotten our trust, and we have given them these positions of representation, but then they decide to misuse them, and they will not get out there. So what do we need to do? We need to keep pushing. If you try one thing, I was one of the people who were advocating for the road maintenance levy fund. And when people went for public participation, and the then Minister of Transport, Mr. Murkomen, alisemati, hatutapandisha hiyo levy fund, we will find a way to cushion Kenyans before we increase. But then the president the following week, Ruto akasema tu tutapandisha. And you now wonder, because ultimately the cost of this.
Sheila, would you try to wind up, please? We're trying to get 3 minutes each. And Abdullahi, I will try to drop those who have spoken so that the others can get a chance. So if I drop you after you've spoken, there's no offense. They're just trying to create some space for others. Back to you, Sheila, as you wind up, and then
Thank you so much. So, and where was I?
Paul, I just interrupted you. You were at this point where there's something you talked about, a quote, and you were thinking about the next steps. Okay.
Yeah. So, anyway, let me just sum it up. We will never relent, and we are looking at a political class that has formed their ideologies to their solution. The ultimate solution is coming together, forming coalitions to protect themselves. And one thing we need not to lose is our determination. Every time we come together and fight for a purpose, something we are already making a step towards. So me, I'm very happy that even Eric Omondi picked up the nimesahau hiyo nini ya reduce the cost of governance. And that is another thing we need to focus on, is the quality of leadership that we send. The people we choose to represent us are very important. Let us focus on scrutinizing them very, very intensively. And then number 2, always be up. Ukipata shida iko, ambia mtu, let somebody know something is happening to you. And when you hear something is happening to somebody, even if you're one person and you say it, eventually that track will come. So I want to tell us, let us reject poor governance. Let us reject mismanagement of public resources. Let us reject stealing of our hard-earned tax money. Let us reject unjust policies. Let us reject violation of human and constitutional rights. And let's keep at it. Let us reject any form of oppression on our health, on our education, on our transport, on our food security, on our peace as Kenyans. Our mental health is very important. Anytime a leader comes to you and they want to compromise your integrity, make sure you make it known. We need to lose the fear. I know most of us could be scared, maybe nitakufa, maybe nitafanya nini, but at some point we have to cross a certain bridge, and let us do it together. So to close, there is this bill called Punguza Mizigo Bill ya Ekuruokot. I think if we come together and we amend it, we tweak a bit what needs to be adjusted for what we're experiencing now and what we think can be tackled in the future, I think that would be a good thing. People who need a copy of that bill, I have it, and on Tuesday from 6 to about 8, we also tackle it. I do not have the intellect to dissect the Constitution, but we just give our opinions on it. And sometimes Ekuruokot comes to the space, and I would like to invite also Dr. Miguna, because of your insight and knowledge of the Constitution as a legal person. I also welcome every other Kenyan. We need each other. So thank you so much for this space. Na tuendele hivyo hawa watu wasitubebe ujinga, tumechoka. Asanteni sana.
Thank you so much, Sheila. Let's go to Wanda and then Afro, and Afro will then usher in Dr. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ahmad. I salute every person. I salute Dr. Miguna and every person on board. From where I sit, I feel like we keep getting all this wrong. Because I'm not in either way looking at the Punguza Mizigo or any kind of initiative that is being brought on board as a problem or not okay. But I feel like we keep getting this wrong. When you look at Kenya,
Can somebody hear Wanda well? I think he's not.
Just the general elections, we were having things like. You can hear me?
The past seconds not, but now yes. Now yes. Try again.
Okay, thank you. As I was saying, I feel like we keep getting this all wrong. That in as much as politics is a major problem that is affecting us, but it always starts and ends with the presidential elections. That we keep giving presidential elections a lot of time, powers, resources, and everything to the extent that we end up with the office that is not addressing the challenges and problems of our people, but instead we end up getting a person, we end up getting an office that in one way or the other is in a position to put into their pocket the legislature. At some point, we'll end up with the judiciary not working well, and all this. It's all in the presidential elections that we end up forgetting that as a country we have other regions that might not be populated, but probably they have a say, or probably they have an input into the problems that we are having. From the tyranny of numbers, Kupanda Mlima, and today we are now talking of Kuguza Mlima, it tells you that even if we end up with one or two, three programs brought on board to Punguza the Mzigo that we are having, if we don't address the presidential elections and how we conduct our elections, we'll still end up with some individuals into these positions that will not address the challenges that we are having. If I'm told no one of these people is looking at the CDF, and imagine that when Kibaki came into power, he only brought in CDF to address the inequalities that were brought in by the differences between those in opposition and those in government, then it tells you that we are still not addressing the challenges that we are facing. The other thing that I would like to talk of that I feel like it's probably not going the right direction is how we are managing the Gen Zs and the millennials. We are too quick to fund any Gen Zs or the millennials that are perceived to be speaking the language of the people. Instead of looking at these individuals, guide them, nurture them before funding a clear structure, we end up empowering these Gen Zs and the millennials too early, too soon, such that those in power, those in the presidential election power kind of mindset, easily points out to those few 1, 2, 3 individuals that we are funding, put them in the pocket. Then we go back to the square zero. Instead of funding these young, promising Gen Zs and the millennials that probably are perceived or seen as persons with the potentials to offer alternative leadership in the future, start coming up with the clear structures. Put them in proper structures before showing them, before putting money into their hands. So allow me to yield on this point that the main problem that we are facing as a country is how we conduct presidential elections. If we don't address how we conduct presidential elections, we'll end up with the saints in the same positions that will turn into vampires, then eaters. Allow me to yield on that much.
Thank you so much, Mwalimu Wanda, for your very good submissions there. Of course, you gave us some food for the thought, and that's a very welcome submission. Over to you, Afro, as you then welcome Daktari.
Thank you so much, guys. I hope we are sharing the space on your timeline. Revolutionary ideas must be passed on like candles. You have to inject in your social circle of influence, whether it's your family, whether it's your work colleagues, even as a simple tweet on your space. You're keeping these revolutionary ideas going. Right now, we're at a stage where we're bridging the gap between generations, between Gen Zs, millennials, Gen Xs, boomers. This is where there are people who have fought in this struggle for the longest, and we are now standing on their shoulders, and we are joining hands, and we're cuffing links, and we're saying that we have to dispose this corrupt regime. So without further much ado, allow me to welcome Daktari Miguna Miguna on the space to give us his thoughts on the revolution. Karibu Daktari, the microphone is yours.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much, Maj and Afrocentric, for the illuminating introduction. I've been listening, and I want to continue listening before I contribute to the discussion. I've just asked Maj to also include. I've seen Dr. Barak Muluka. Listening.
Yeah, let me add then,
I
Dr.
believe
Yeah.
Wakili Ndegwa was there. So there are a few other people, plus, of course, our friend Mwangi, CPA, who has done quite a bit of research on how corruption and looting is happening at the counties. So I will be back, but let's have a vibrant discussion.
Great, Daktari. Tony, you've left. I just added you to the mic. Kindly pick it. As I try to add other guests, let me see if that is going to work now. I think you sent the request again. As I add them on, let's have Farah speak.
Thank you. Maj, am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. I have a very different opinion from... I don't blame the political class, because for them, it was an opportunity that they saw and wanted to execute. And according to them, they're doing it very well. My problem is with us, the citizenry, the people. Sisi kama wananchi. For a period of time, a lot of us have not cared about what happens with our motherland. We have not...
Maj, is there a problem? I can't seem to hear anybody.
I can hear the current speaker.
Yeah, Farah, I can hear Farah too.
Yeah. Okay. I can hear him. Let's give him one more chance, then we see what happens. And after him, we have Tony on board. Farah, kindly continue.
Thank you, Maj.
Please.
No problem. I was saying, for a period of time, we haven't cared enough about what happens with the future of our country, because if you look at the bills that have been passed for a period of time, since Uhuru's time to this current regime, it's a continuous attack on our agricultural sector and our sovereignty, because ni wenda wazimu inaendelea, honestly, for lack of better words. And if you look at, we need to start having the mentality that, and understanding that it is our responsibility to develop our motherland. Adani is not responsibility Adani or anybody else coming from the outside. I'll give you a very simple example where we can make this happen and ensure that everybody believes in ourselves, because what Adani is offering, for instance, for the JKIA and all the other airports, is 30% of $2 billion, which is about 600. If you ukileta into Kenyan shillings, it's about 78 billion Kenyan shillings. Divided amongst the populace, it's 1,560 shillings per person. But that's impossible. Why don't we form a consortium, buy shares into it, and become Adani? What is stopping us from building our motherlands? the West, America was built by Americans and the immigrants who wanted to be Americans. 60 years ago, Dubai and all these lands were desolate deserts, but it was built by the Arabs and the money that they pulled from their grounds. You as a people, what's stopping you? Why do you always have to delegate your responsibility to other people? This is the same reason we have a lot of people having the Messiah mentality, whereby unaona mtu is just pointing out at problems, not coming up with solutions, but you go on the same boat because he's the only person speaking and you're not responsible enough to take up responsibility. That was one thing. The second thing, I would really like to talk to the people who are my age, the Gen Zs and the millennials. One of the main reasons why the protests failed was because we told the older generation and everybody else, kaeni nyumbani, we do not need you. That's a lie. We need each and everybody. Look at what happened in Egypt at the Tahrir Square. It is the Gen Z and the younger generation that were camping out, but the older generation provided them with everything else that they needed. They provided food, water, security, blankets, everything you needed. And that's the only way we are going to change this country. It's not about you. It's about what's better and what's best for this country. It's about a better tomorrow. And this is one plea I would like to make to the older generation, Kina Dr. Miguna, Kina Tony Gashoka, and all these other older people. We will make mistakes as the younger generation, but we need your wisdom and our energy to make this thing work. Otherwise, we will all keep on complaining online and discussing problems without ever coming up with a solution or acting on those solutions. I don't think the election cycle or the political class is a problem. Shida ni wewe na mimi. We do not love this country enough. And the moment you realize that hii nchi ni mimi na wewe, there's a Somali saying that says, Dalka wa datka, dulka maha. The country is the people, not the land. So those were my few remarks. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Farah. If you don't mind, put that phrase on the comment section. We're going to learn some Somali here as we continue. Thanks. Tony Gashoka?
Maj,
yes.
I would like to also add a verse of the Quran before Tony comes on.
Go on.
You know, the older generations, the generations that came before us, dealt with tyrants who were much worse than the people we are dealing with. Moses was told, اذهب إلى فرعون إنه طغى. Go and face Pharaoh, for he has exceeded in transgression. And he said, I am scared, for he might exceed upon me or kill me. And God told him, لا تخافا إنني معكما أسمع وأرى. Do not be scared, for I am with you, all seeing and all hearing. And this was against people who are building the pyramids. We are dealing with people who cannot maintain roads. Look at the disparity. Thank you.
Thanks so much for the very strong ending of that statement. Yes. Over to you, Tony.
Yes, good evening to everybody, Maj and my comrade at arms, Dr. Miguna Miguna. Look, fellow Kenyans, we are at the most dangerous time we have ever been, I think, since the construction of the Kenyan Republic. I say the Kenyan Republic because the more dangerous times, comparable ones, were during the fight for our independence from the colonial powers in order to transform Kenya into a self-governing state. So dangerous is the situation because I am seeing a series of activities that can be summarized not just as dictatorship, but a methodical, systematic degrading of our multi-party democracy. I mean, we've already talked from the beginning, since the disputed election, that the first thing to discredit was the commission, electoral commission itself, that it was, said to be split. But soon after that election, it was buried. As we speak today, nobody in the political class, including the opposition or the government, is talking about the IBUC. We are in a situation where there is a conspiracy between the opposition and the government. William Ruto began to systematically buy the opposition MPs. But I think I see something which is even more worrisome. The opposition MPs are seeking William Ruto. It is no longer a one-way relationship. This is a two-way traffic. The greed of the political class, the excesses of the greed of the political class in Kenya is beyond historical comparisons. Yes, you go to elections, you elect MPs, they vote themselves the biggest salaries and the biggest benefits. When they leave office, they give themselves pensions and health care for life. They have voted within parliament that if you elect a party to government or a party to opposition, they are entitled to the political party's fund. Therefore, even after elections, the public continue to fund their political parties. Many of those political parties are individual enterprises, like in the case of ODM, like in the case of several other smaller parties. One would argue in Kenyan politics from the time of DP, from the time of, I think, Foda, Silly, and so forth, that so many of these parties were always individualized, so that even what you call the political parties fund becomes the piggy bag of the so-called owners of these parties, again funded by the public. And then all of a sudden, you've seen the other day, Parliament within 24 hours can come together in unison, government, opposition, and everything in between. And within 24 hours can pass a motion and a bill with 2/3 in their interest or in whatever the agenda they want to pass. Without where we are in Kenya today, we elected a government and an opposition that is non-existent. The Kenyan people, under the political parties political act of 2021, were given the position before elections to look at parties. Those parties went out and formed coalitions. In the case of the Kenya Kwanza, they formed coalitions of parties and offered their manifesto and offered their candidatures to the country. In the case of Azimio, they formed a constituent party. The law requires that both the two competitors deposit with the registrar of political parties the documents containing the ideology and manifesto